Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today, we're diving into a story that's so chilling, it's almost unbelievable. Imagine a man sworn to protect and serve, who instead becomes a living nightmare. Meet Gerard John Schaefer Jr., a former sheriff's deputy turned suspected serial killer, known by the terrifying nicknames the Killer Cop, the Hangman, and the Butcher of Blind Creek. This man is a dark enigma wrapped in a cloak of horror. Convicted for the brutal murder of 2 teenage girls, and suspected in up to 26 more, Schaefer is a figure that will haunt your dreams. But here's the kicker. What if I told you there's more to this story than meets the eye? More twists, more victims, and more dark secrets waiting to be uncovered. Intrigued? Then hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you won't want to miss what's coming up next. Let's unravel the twisted tale of Gerard John Schaefer Jr. Before we delve into the dark abyss of Gerard John Schaefer Jr.'s crimes, let's take a step back and look at where it all began. Born on March 26, 1946, in Neenah, Wisconsin, Schaefer was the first of 3 children. His father, Gerard John Schaefer Sr., was a traveling salesman, and his mother, Doris Marie Schaefer, was a housewife. Sounds like an ordinary American family, right? But hold on, because things are about to get twisted. Schaefer himself described his upbringing as anything but idyllic. He called himself the illegitimate product of a forced marriage. And here's where it gets even more unsettling. Schaefer revealed that he began to masturbate while wearing women's underwear at the tender age of 12. So, what does this early life tell us about the man who would go on to become a suspected serial killer? Were these early signs of a disturbed mind? Or were they just quirks in an otherwise normal childhood? Stick around, because we're just scratching the surface of this enigmatic and terrifying individual. Alright, folks, let's fast forward to a chapter in Gerard John Schaefer Jr.'s life that's as ironic as it is terrifying. Picture this, a man who's supposed to uphold the law, instead becomes a lawbreaker of the worst kind. Schaefer started his career in law enforcement in 1972 when he joined the Martin County Sheriff's Office in Florida. Sounds like a noble profession, doesn't it? But here's where the plot thickens. Schaefer didn't just use his badge for good, he used it as a shield to commit horrifying crimes. His first recognized homicide occurred in the very same year he joined the force, 1972. He would abduct and kill teenage girls, exploiting his position to target vulnerable individuals. So, imagine the horror of being pulled over by a cop, only to realize that the person behind the badge is a predator. It's the stuff of nightmares. And it was all too real for Schaefer's victims. But wait, there's more to this story that you won't believe. So, if you're as intrigued as I am, make sure to smash that like button and share this video. Trust me, you'll want to hear what comes next. Gerard John Schaefer Jr.'s first brush with the dark side of the law came shortly after he joined the Martin County Sheriff's Office in 1972. Within the same year, he was convicted for the murder and mutilation of 2 teenage girls in Port St. Lucie, Florida. But what's even more chilling is how he managed to evade capture initially. Schaefer would use his position as a sheriff's deputy to target vulnerable young women. He would pull them over under the guise of a routine traffic stop, only to abduct them later. His modus operandi involved tying his victims to trees and then torturing them. Despite these horrific acts, Schaefer was not immediately suspected, thanks in part to his position in law enforcement, which provided him a veil of trust and authority. It wasn't until he was caught in the act of abducting 2 more girls that the law finally caught up with him. The girls managed to escape and reported the incident, leading to Schaefer's arrest. But by then, how many had already fallen victim to his twisted actions? And how did he exploit the very system designed to protect us? When it comes to Gerard John Schaefer Jr., the term modus operandi takes on a whole new level of horror. Schaefer had a particular method of killing that was as calculated as it was cruel. He would often use his position as a sheriff's deputy to lure young women into a false sense of security. Once he had them in his grasp, he would abduct them, often tying them to trees in secluded areas. But what sets Schaefer apart from other killers is his signature hangman's noose. He would use this chilling instrument to torture and ultimately kill his victims. This method was so distinct that it earned him the nickname the Hangman. It wasn't just a way to kill, it was a sadistic form of art for him, a way to instill maximum fear and suffering in his victims before their final moments. Schaefer's modus operandi involved not just the act of killing but also documenting his sadistic acts in chilling detail. It was as if he wanted to relive these horrifying moments over and over again. This level of calculated cruelty is what makes the story of Gerard John Schaefer Jr. so unnerving. While Gerard John Schaefer Jr. was convicted for the murder and mutilation of 2 teenage girls in Port St. Lucie, Florida, the chilling reality is that he is suspected of many more. Authorities believe that Schaefer could be responsible for up to 26 further murders. Yes, you heard that right, 26. One particularly haunting case involves Carmen Marie Halleck. 2 gold-filled teeth and a shamrock pin belonging to Halleck were discovered in Schaefer's possession. further fueling suspicions about his involvement in her disappearance and presumed murder. Schaefer himself frequently boasted that his death toll was higher than 80, all of them women. While these claims have not been substantiated, they add another layer of horror to an already terrifying individual. Gerard John Schaefer Jr.'s life behind bars was as unsettling as his life outside of it. After being convicted of 2 murders, he was sentenced to 2 terms of life imprisonment in 1973 to be served at Florida State Prison. But don't think for a second that prison life tamed this beast. Schaefer was described by prosecutor Robert Stone as the most sexually deviant person he had ever encountered. Even in prison, he continued to be a subject of intrigue and horror. He was known for his manipulative behavior, often trying to exert influence over other inmates and even the prison staff. But what's truly chilling is that Schaefer never showed any remorse for his crimes. Instead, he took to writing what he called killer fiction, which many believe were actually thinly veiled confessions of his real-life murders. This killer fiction would later be used as evidence against him, adding another layer of complexity to his already twisted life. Schaefer's life in prison came to an abrupt end on December 3, 1995, when he was found dead in his cell in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The cause: he was stabbed to death by a fellow inmate. It seems that even behind bars, Schaefer couldn't escape the violent world he had created for himself and others. While serving time in prison, Gerard John Schaefer Jr. took his twisted fantasies to paper and penned a book called Killer Fiction, published in 1997. This book is a collection of stories that disturbingly mirror the heinous crimes he committed. It's as if Schaefer was taunting the world, daring us to look into the abyss of his dark mind. The book was co-authored with Sandra London and received mixed reviews. But what's undeniable is its eerie resemblance to the real-life horrors inflicted by Schaefer. Many believe that the stories in Killer Fiction are not fiction at all but rather thinly veiled confessions of his actual crimes. The book delves into graphic details of abduction, torture, and murder, making it a chilling read for anyone brave enough to venture into its pages. What's even more unsettling is that this book was written while Schaefer was behind bars, serving 2 life sentences. It's as if the prison walls couldn't contain his malevolent creativity. The book became a subject of controversy and was even used as evidence against him in subsequent investigation. The case of Gerard John Schaefer Jr. is not without its controversies and debates. While he was convicted for the murder of 2 teenage girls, there are those who question the extent of his guilt. Some conspiracy theories even suggest that Schaefer may have been a scapegoat, framed for crimes he didn't commit. However, these theories are largely dismissed given the overwhelming evidence against him, including his own writings in Killer Fiction. Another point of contention is the role of the media in shaping public opinion about Schaefer. The sensational headlines and the nicknames like the Killer Cop and the Hangman have led some to question whether the media's portrayal influenced the outcome of his trials and subsequent investigation. Additionally, there's debate over the ethical implications of his book Killer Fiction. While some see it as a disturbing but important piece of criminal psychology, others argue that it should never have been published, as it could inspire copycat crimes. Schaefer's own behavior also adds fuel to the fire. His lack of remorse and his attempts to manipulate the legal system have led to questions about the adequacy of the justice system in dealing with such complex and dangerous individuals. When it comes to understanding the twisted psyche of Gerard John Schaefer Jr., experts and psychologists have their work cut out for them. Schaefer was a complex individual with a dark and disturbing mind. He himself stated that he began to masturbate while wearing women's underwear at an early age, around 12 years old. This early sexual deviance is often cited as a precursor to his later, more violent tendencies. In college, Schaefer told his writing professor, semi-famous Southern novelist Harry Crews, that he was tortured by murder fantasies. Crews referred Schaefer to a counselor, where Schaefer confessed, would like to kill things. This chilling admission provides a glimpse into the depths of his deranged mind. Prosecutor Robert Stone described him as the most sexually deviant person he had ever encountered. This sexual deviance, combined with his lack of empathy and remorse, paints a picture of a man who was a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the right moment to unleash his violent urges. Schaefer's manipulative behavior, both in and out of prison, further complicates his psychological profile. His ability to manipulate people into believing his lies suggests traits commonly associated with psychopathy. The lives and stories of Gerard John Schaefer Jr.'s victims are both heartbreaking and chilling. While he was convicted for the murder of 2 teenage girls in Port St. Lucie, Florida, he is suspected of up to 26 further murders. Each victim was not just a number but a person with dreams, hopes, and loved ones left behind. The 2 girls he was convicted of murdering were Susan Place and Georgia Jessup. They were just teenagers, with their whole lives ahead of them. They were last seen hitchhiking, a decision that tragically led them to cross paths with Schaefer. Their mutilated bodies were later found, and the horror of their final moments is unimaginable. Schaefer's suspected victims range in age and background, but they all share the unfortunate fate of crossing paths with a man whose intentions were dark and deadly. He frequently boasted that his death toll was higher than 80, all of them women. This claim, while not verified, adds another layer of horror to his already gruesome story. The victims' families have been left with a void that can never be filled, forever haunted by the question of why their loved ones had to suffer such a terrible fate. The impact of Schaefer's crimes extends far beyond the lives he took, affecting communities and leaving a lasting scar on the collective psyche. The legal proceedings surrounding Gerard John Schaefer Jr. were as complex as they were unsettling. Schaefer was initially arrested in 1972 for the murders of Susan Place and Georgia Jessup, two teenage girls whose mutilated bodies were found in Port St. Lucie, Florida. The prosecution's case against him was built on strong forensic evidence, including teeth and personal belongings of the victims found in Schaefer's possession. Schaefer's defense strategy was a mix of denial and attempts to discredit the prosecution's evidence. He claimed that the items found were not connected to any crime and that he was being framed. However, his own writings, later published as killer fiction, would become a significant piece of evidence against him. The prosecutor, Robert Stone, described Schaefer as the most sexually deviant person he had ever encountered and argued that his crimes were the greatest crime in the history of the United States. This hyperbolic statement added another layer of drama to an already sensational case. Schaefer was eventually convicted and sentenced to 2 life prison sentences. Despite his attempts to appeal, his convictions were upheld, sealing his fate as one of America's most notorious killers. Gerard John Schaefer Jr.'s life came to a violent end on December 3, 1995, inside the walls of a Florida prison. He was 49 years old at the time of his death. Schaefer was found dead in his cell at the Florida State Prison in Ryford, Bradford County, Florida. The cause of death was multiple stab wounds. The circumstances surrounding his death are shrouded in mystery and speculation. While the details are not entirely clear, it's widely believed that he was killed by a fellow inmate. The motive for his murder remains unknown, but given his notoriety and the nature of his crimes, it's not surprising that he had enemies even within the prison system. Schaefer's death brought a sense of closure for some, especially the families of his victims. However, it also left many questions unanswered, particularly concerning the other murders he was suspected of but never convicted for. The legacy of Gerard John Schaefer Jr. is a haunting one that continues to reverberate through various sectors of society. His sadistic acts have left an indelible mark on the community, forever altering the way people view authority figures. Law enforcement practices were also significantly impacted, as his case highlighted the potential for abuse within the system. In the realm of criminal psychology, Schaefer's case has been studied extensively to understand the mind of a killer who could commit such heinous acts while hiding behind a badge. The media played a crucial role in shaping the narrative around Gerard John Schaefer Jr. Local media outlets were fed information by the police, leading to sensational headlines that amplified the horror of his crimes. His case has also been mentioned in popular culture, including the series Mindhunter, where he is discussed as a criminal profile. There are also documentaries and articles that delve into the complexities of his life and crimes. The twisted saga of Gerard John Schaefer Jr. serves as a dark testament to the depths of human cruelty and the flaws within systems meant to protect us. This case isn't just a story, it's a lesson in vigilance, a call to scrutinize not just the world around us but also the very institutions we rely on for safety. It's a chapter that has earned its place in the annals of true crime, offering invaluable insights into criminal psychology, the vulnerabilities in law enforcement, and the power of media in shaping our understanding of such horrifying events. If this story has gripped you as much as it has us, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of true crime. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think are the most shocking aspects of this case? And what other true crime stories would you like us to cover next? Your engagement helps us bring more chilling tales to light. So, let's keep the conversation going.